I caught my wife on camera saying that she was having her do-over baby with her lover because she doesn't like our children. So I revealed her affair to everyone and left her with nothing. My eldest came to me saying she wanted to tell me something. She said that for months, Mama had been bringing a man over some Saturdays when I was at work and had referred to him as her special friend. She got our kids to keep quiet about it by bribery. But my eldest realized that something was very wrong with it and spent some time working up the courage to tell me. I had noticed my wife acting a bit differently lately. She had been short with everyone, especially the kids. I quickly ordered and set up a few hidden cameras without anyone knowing. Hooking them up and connecting them to the Wi-Fi was very easy. I could monitor every part of the house from my home PC, laptop, and work PC in just a few short hours. My worst fears were confirmed as I got plenty of evidence in just the first week. The man my wife has taken as an AP is her former colleague. I remembered him quite well as they seemed close to my wife whenever I met him at various functions. My wife quit her job years ago to be a full-time mom after getting pregnant with our first child. AP is about a decade younger than my wife. She mentored him at her former job to fill her position when she left, and the two of them stayed close. I ended up confiding with my sister about what was happening and showed her the footage from the nanny cams. I ended up ordering a GPS tracker as well, and after I got it working, I hid it in the trunk of my wife's car. My sister and her husband agreed to help me and follow the tracker on my wife's next supposed night out with friends. She went to a different place 20 miles further away than where she usually goes. From there, she met up with AP. My sister and brother-in-law observed them from their car for some time. I noticed that AP kept rubbing her belly while they were talking, and they recorded a video of this, too. When I saw the footage, I knew she had to be pregnant with his baby since she was so moody at home. Later I decided to take a leave from work, but told my wife I would be on a business trip. She couldn't have been more excited about it, and didn't try very hard to hide her glee that I'd be leaving for a while. My sister and brother-in-law agreed to take my kids for a few days because they love visiting aunts and uncles in the city. This gave my wife the exact opening she wanted. She called AP only a few hours after I left, and he showed up that evening to spend the night. But on top of all that, they were joking about me continuously. They openly talked about their baby and how they needed to figure out what to do before her belly started to show, as she was already over 3 months along by then, and there was no way it could be passed off as mine. AP is a different race from me, so it'd be pretty easy to tell the baby wouldn't be mine from birth. My wife brushed AP's concerns aside and said they had months to figure it out. Even her AP asked her about her plan for our kids. Her exact words were, "He can have them." She didn't want to be around our kids anymore because she thought they liked me better, and she'd soon be having her do-over baby anyway. I nearly threw the laptop on the floor in my motel room because I was so disgusted. I thought I knew my wife so well. I made up my mind right then to destroy her in a divorce. I went to see a law firm for divorce lawyers the very next day and asked for the meanest lawyer they had. I live in an at-fault state, so my wife was screwed the moment I had her affair on camera. I had my wife served a few weeks later on a day I was working from home, and the kids were in school. The eldest is in kindergarten, and the youngest is in preschool. The local sheriff delivered the papers to my wife's hands. The cameras caught it all. She looked scared while she opened the envelope, read the contents, and then lost her mind. She came running into my office to scream at me, but I remained cool and calm the whole time. I was already completely mentally checked out of our marriage. My wife wanted to argue. I just told her I'd made up my mind, and I wanted her out of my house. I'm the only one who's ever paid into the mortgage. She screamed at me that I couldn't do this to her, and then actually threatened to tell people I'd beat her if I take her to court and get me fired from my job to boot. I told her to go ahead and make up any lie she wanted. It won't help her. It's not like she wasn't planning on screwing me over since she's pregnant with her AP's baby anyway. She went wide-eyed and asked me how much I knew. I just said I knew enough and told her I wanted her to leave again. She refused and said it was as much her house as it was mine. Then, she locked herself in the bedroom again. I saw on the bedroom cameras that she was having a meltdown, pulling out her phone, and calling the police. She acted like she was in complete panic but had a huge smile while doing it. She was quite the actress. I waited for the police with the front door wide open and told them to come right in when they arrived. They were initially hot-blooded and ready for a showdown. My wife came running out of the bedroom and grabbed the vest of one of the officers while crying and saying I was a maniac. I asked one of the other officers to let me show them evidence of what was going on, and he agreed, which startled my wife as she was unaware that I'd recorded her. I showed the officer the footage from the cameras on a laptop of my wife, saying she'd make stuff up to ruin my life. Then, there was the footage from the living room after she ran out of my office and into the master bedroom and down the hall. And then the footage from the camera in the bedroom of her calling the police and lying. I'd recorded it all, and from multiple angles, no less. Then I handed the police a thumb drive and said it had all the video footage they needed of her calling them under pretenses. My wife, even in the face of all this, stuck to her lie of saying I was an abuser and even tried to say the recordings were illegal and, therefore, inadmissible. But I pointed out they were legal because they were security cameras inside my home and not publicly recorded. She was the one put in handcuffs, and she started bawling like a child. I could only sit there shaking my head. As the police took her away, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her. I then shut down all her credit cards in my name and stopped any future payments into the joint bank account. So she had to use entirely her own money to bail herself out of jail. She'd saved plenty all those years, and she was still working while the mortgage was only on me. So she was anything but broke. She returned to her car, which I'd packed a few of her suitcases full of her clothes and some other things, and left the key on the seat. My wife's parents did come to speak to me a day after she bailed herself out of jail. Initially they only had the backward story she told them, which was the same thing she tried to tell the police. Her father, especially, as he's big and strong. But when I asked him if he knew anything about my wife's affair or her pregnancy, he looked very surprised and gave me the chance to explain myself. I pulled out the laptop again to show my in-laws what I'd recorded. When they discovered the truth, they were disgusted and said they couldn't believe this person was their daughter. They apologized to me and said they'd keep in touch to help out with my kids. Then they called my wife on speaker right in front of me and confronted her about her lies. She tried to double down, till they said they were with me right then and saw the recordings. They knew everything and wanted her out of their house immediately. She tried to backpedal, but my in-laws said they did not raise her to be a selfish adulterous bitch that would try to frame her own husband, and she was no longer their daughter. They disowned her over the phone right then and there, and then hung up before my Wife could say anything else. She tried to call back, but they ignored her every attempt. And when they got home, not only was she gone, but she destroyed several things around their house, which my mother-in-law was in tears about. My ex is effectively dead to us all. About a week later, my wife showed back up at my door, saying that she would agree to a clean divorce if I did as well, meaning she'd have gotten half of everything if I had agreed. But I said no to her face. There was some fighting back and forth, and she more or less admitted to finding out that the law in this state was not on her side. We met, got engaged, got married, and lived our whole lives in this state. She could not get out of taking a major loss unless I agreed to settle. Which I did not. Then I said that she betrayed me, our kids, her parents, and practically everyone by having an affair. Then I slammed the door in her face. She left quietly, and I didn't see her again till court. A few months later, in divorce court, my wife was visibly quite pregnant by then, and she'd gotten a lawyer. AP was also nowhere to be seen. I asked her to lie to the judge, which she started to do a few times, but I had enough video evidence to refute any lies, so she really didn't stand a chance. So instead, she tried to drag out the divorce by refusing to cooperate and making various demands. She wanted most of my savings, for starters, and she wanted a long list of other things I own, and she wanted me to buy out of her half of the house, even though she never paid into it. On my end, I was pushing for full custody of the kids and to get her name off the house deed. I had the video evidence to back up how she said she didn't really care for our children anymore too, and how she said she would make up lies. My wife tried to stall, and repeatedly change her demands, but the judge didn't let her keep dragging things out. This being an at-fault state meant that she was entitled to very little, since she was the adulterer, and her attempts to frame me only made her case even worse. In the end she lost all custody of our kids, and walked away with nothing more than her belongings. What could be considered a fair financial settlement considering the circumstances, and the car I'd previously bought for her. The title was in my name, but I signed it over without a care as part of the settlement. She'd made no attempts to even speak to our kids during the entire divorce anyway. So I got full custody, the house is entirely mine now, and I'm completely free of her.